Uncle Ed Wilkinson used to boast that he was born in the last house in civilization, and there may be some truth in his statement, for he saw the first light of day in his grandfather's house in Nobleboro way back in 1829, when the Adirondacks beyond that place consisted of almost impenetrable wilderness. When Ed was 10, his father pulled up stakes and moved to Duanesburg, where the family lived for 6 or 7 years, but the call of the wild was in the Wilkinson blood, so they came back to Nobleboro, and their house became the last stopping place for those rugged individuals who wished to penetrate to Jocks Lake or Piseco. Ed adopted the only known profession in the area, that of Adirondack guide, and for many years conducted parties of sports on hunting, fishing, and camping trips. The exploit of which he was most proud was the shooting of the last Adirondack moose. Governor Horatio Seymour was along that day, and he got credit for shooting the last moose, which rears its proud head in the Munson William Institute in Utica. Ed never said too much about that trip except to remark shyly that he had shot 3 moose the day Seymour got his. Uncle Ed never married. Somewhere along the line he met a girl and fell in love with her. Evidently they were thinking seriously of marriage, for Ed bought a wedding suit. Shortly before the occasion, he and the bride-to-be got into a serious disagreement, and either she jilted him or he jilted her, so the marriage never came off. Ed folded the wedding suit carefully and put it away where the moths wouldn't get at it. In his long lifetime, he was never known to have worn it. Old-time guides in some ways had careers which resembled those of modern prize fighters. When their legs grew too stiff for long tramps in the woods, they set themselves up as tavern keepers. John Edward Spenceley Wilkinson, that was Ed's full name, put up a house in Wilmert, at that point where the road to Gray branches off to cross the West Canada Creek. Inasmuch as Ed was known and liked throughout the whole area, his place soon became a stopping place for hunters and fishermen. It had 2 official names, the Wilmert House and the Hunter's Home, but to the initiated, it was always Uncle Ed Wilkes' place. By Condon's rigs stopped there en route from Prospect Station to Mountain Home and other points in the wilderness. Sports ate one of Uncle Ed's famous meals, usually a thick slice of ham smothered with a fried egg, but on occasion a slab of venison or a mess of brook trout. They bought a few groceries at his store or chatted with the 250-pound housekeeper who was with him for years. Most of them were familiar with the brown pitcher of cold beer, which he used to produce from behind the narrow counter which served as the bar. The town of Wilmert rewarded Uncle Ed by electing him to offices. Assessor, supervisor, town clerk, and the Wilmert post office was at his place. Uncle Ed's hotel did not look like much, a small frame house with a rather disreputable wing. He would hardly recognize his remodeled place in the trim camp which stands upon the spot today. He might think his old tavern too much dressed up. So would French Louis, Johnny Leaf, and others. Pictures of Uncle Ed show him as a dignified gentleman with mutton chop whiskers, once dark but later turned white. He more closely resembled an Albany politician than a backwoodsman. He was nearly 70 when he decided he could no longer carry on at Wilmert. His nephew, Ed Robertson, formerly Duck Barber's prize guide, had settled in Barneveld, so Uncle Ed went there to finish out his days as near as possible to his beloved Adirondacks. Memories flooded in like swift waters of the West Canada Creek. Most of his old cronies had passed on, but Louis was still in circulation and might stop to pass a word or two. And when the time came for Uncle Ed to go, he made a final request of his nephew. He asked to be buried in his wedding suit. His wish was granted, and he went to his final rest, clad in the suit he had bought for his scheduled wedding of some 50 years before.